And at the website, the NHF.com/campaigns, you'll see on the top two campaigns letters you can send to protect our rights against these mandates in order to work, travel, shop, or learn. And we'll have one of our attorneys, Greg Glazer, give us an update on that. But first, Petra Brocken, or is it Brocken? Sorry, Petra, from the Minnesota Natural Health Coalition. She's the director there. She's a criminal attorney and co-founder of Safe Technology Minnesota, is going to discuss a smart meters case in Pennsylvania that has national repercussions, also repercussions for the broader wireless radiation issue, about which we have another campaign at that same website that we hope folks will also send a letter on to help us locate a sponsor for a mitigation bill that our organization is promoting to protect our kids in the classrooms, to protect our bedrooms and, just our ability to live without being irradiated everywhere. So Petra, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, welcome, Petra. So do you want to talk about the smart meter case and the Amicus brief that National Health Federation signed on to?
I would love to. Thank you so much. And I so much appreciate being here today, and also everything that your organization does. I admire it greatly. So yes, I did help out on the amicus brief that was filed in support of the Pennsylvania smart meter case. So in 2008, Pennsylvania came out with a law saying that smart meters were going in. The Public Utilities Commission basically said these are mandated, and anyone who had a reaction to them and had a doctor's note or wanted an accommodation for their disability would not be accommodated. So different plaintiffs sued on. The lower court said that the plaintiffs were right and that they needed to be accommodated. And the PUC took it up to the appellate courts. It's currently at the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Children's Health Defense realized what an important case this was because, as I know you all know, having a smart meter on your house for many people has extreme health effects. And even people who aren't sensitive to other types of wireless radiation can get ill from smart meters. And if the Pennsylvania Supreme Court came out with a ruling that, the disability laws didn't apply, this would have far-reaching repercussions for all litigation about wireless technology. So Children's Health Defense really put together an incredible brief. It has so many different aspects to it, not only the legal aspect, but also the different parts of it that support it. A scientist's statement signed on to by scientists, a doctor's statement where 57 doctors have over 3,000 patients who have been ill from things like smart meters. The engineer's statement to show exactly what a smart meter does on a house, and the statement of the Amici, where National Health Federation is one of them. And those are all the different organizations around the country who are signing on to show their support and to have all the people they represent, in a sense, brought into this lawsuit to show the court how there are people all over the United States struggling with these issues and in support of having, opt-outs due to the ADA and other laws. So the interesting thing, I think that, that in looking at all of this evidence that Children's Health Defense found was that the FCC had actually admitted that there was something like an electromagnetic hypersensitivity, EHS, however you want to call it, radiation sickness, within certain types of bounds. So they have actually admitted that certain people can be sensitive to the frequencies that are involved in the use of smart meters. So that was a very important thing to bring into this litigation. It's something new that they brought in. So the building biologist signed on, showing also what they had done to help people and how people got better when smart meters are at least somewhat shielded or taken off the house. The point being that you can't even put a smart meter in the yard. You can't have a smart meter on your house without it affecting you in some type of way. And so even having a smart meter in your yard for people who are sensitive isn't going to help. Children's Health Defense also brought in the new ruling from the FCC lawsuit, where the courts agreed that the FCC had not done their job and they hadn't done their due diligence in looking at the changes that have happened since 1996 and really trying to show that radio frequency is safe. So back to the drawing board for them. And so currently, really, there's nothing to show it's safe. So that was brought into this lawsuit through the amicus brief as well. So I know that there might be questions, so I thought I'd stop there. Thank you.
Indeed, Petra, thanks for that concise update. And it does have ramifications around disability rights to not be irradiated. And of course, it's nice that that other big time lawsuit kind of helped us with FCC being exposed as not having backing for its standards. And I'm sure there are other lawsuits that are going to, pile on that one. We have been working at NHF on a proposal to monitor radiation and power emissions from the wireless infrastructure, which indirectly will mitigate because 5G needs maximum power to even work. So we do have some partners on that project on this Zoom. Jenny DeMarco, can you unmute yourself and maybe invite Mary to comment on this or ask a question of Petra?
Sure. Hi, Charles. Thank you. Thank you for letting us do a quick update on this. Mary is actually going to give the update today, and I have a document I will stick in our latest talking points because we just were able to speak to a congressman who may be interested in this bill. So I'm going to stick our talking points in the chat box, and Mary is going to give an update real quick.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Mary, go ahead.
So the detrimental impact of all this unabated wireless radiation, smart meters is one of the things that's going to be attached to the IoT grid, as well as all the 5G emitters. We're hoping that the introduction of the Terra Act of 2021 that does tracking, enforcing, and reducing radiation in air may be helpful in trying to start some regulation on this and start reducing the background radiation levels. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is get together a working group for people who will help work on the bill language, because even though we've kind of done our one-pagers to telecom staffers to different congressmen, they're continuing to ask us for that detailed bill language. And our first meeting on this is today, so we're really excited about that campaign moving into high gear. And we've developed a one-pager that describes a very short thumbnail sketch of what the Terra Act does, the 4 parts to it: tracking, enforcing, permitting, to contain the power levels, meaning they're permitted for a certain power level. If they go above that, that's when the violations and finding comes in. And then, of course, a training package available online for anybody who wants to know more about non-ionizing radiation and how to do their own personal mitigation measures. Because mitigation is the name of the game in the Terra Act, and that is basically promoting wired over wireless wherever it can go. And that will help reduce the background radiation levels, and it will also be safer and more secure. So right now we have a Democratic congressman that's very interested, and we're very optimistic about that moving forward.
Indeed, and we did have a nice call with that congressman the other day, Mary and Jenny, and thank you for helping with that. They did seem intrigued how bringing telecom into the greenhouse gas goals would help with that effort, as well as the digital divide, which we hope to bridge with wired instead of wireless, and help the kids being zapped as the towers get loaded onto their schools. So we'll keep plugging on that. Meanwhile, everyone on this call at the website, thenhf.com/campaigns, can send our sample letter to their congressman urging support for the Terra Act to mitigate wireless emissions around the radiation and power areas. So thanks again, Mary and Petra and Jenny. We can move on to the other two topics or take a couple quick questions from anyone. Alex, if you have anyone with their hands up, folks, you can see the hands up sign under reactions or under the ... more area where you have the Zoom controls. We want to let you raise your hand if you have a quick question. Otherwise, we'll move on to vaccines. Any questions, Alex, from the chat?
No questions. No, I was trying to find the Terra Act in my email somewhere because the link Jenny shared, it says I'll get an email letting me know when the file is shared with me.
Sorry, it's through Google Docs, so
Yeah.
I will share it in a viewable Google Docs in the chat box as soon as I'm able to. I'm sorry about that, everybody.
No worries.
Meanwhile, it is referenced in NHF's sample letter at our website, the nhf.com/campaigns. So moving on to, we're a bit more busy on the vaccine issue. Obviously, the whole country is up in arms around this. And Greg, are you unmuted?
Yes.
So Greg and I have been busy bees with Capitol Hill staffers. Just a couple of days ago, we did a big Zoom with Congressman Gomert on his bill modeled after our proposal to not only give everyone the right to say no to COVID shots, but to any shots based on a pattern of studies showing the childhood schedule really as a big cause of the real epidemic of chronic disease. Because Greg, the human vaccine encyclopedia, and I have done pretty well with a few offices, the word has gotten around, and now we're helping other offices. So we helped Congressman Duncan, who's on the Key Energy and Commerce Committee, with a letter cautioning the Medicare bureaucrats not to require vaccination of people in their institutions tied to Medicare, which means nurses and long-term care facility staff. And we're working with another congressman on the big elephant in the room. There's several elephants, right, Greg?
That's right.
on liability, which would be the sort of panacea. And we have a new office we're working with on the liability end. But for now, our big one is with Congressman Gomer. And he really wants our help to get original co-sponsors before the bill is introduced. So you have that sample letter. Again, the website, thenhf.com/campaigns. Just click say no to vaccine mandates and you'll get that letter sent. So that's the priority for today. What are your thoughts, Greg, on these offices, their different approaches, where we are, and then the bigger picture that this is a tipping point. We have to seize it.
Yes. In my career, I have never experienced as much success as I'm experiencing right now with NHF. Doors are opening. Congressmen are listening. They want to know the things that our health freedom movement has been studying and learning over decades. For the first time, they're really interested in the childhood vaccination schedule. They're really interested in COVID-19 vaccination and the FDA approval. They're interested in the liability of vaccine manufacturers, the liability of employers who are mandating vaccination, and the skills that I've developed over the years in reading law and knowing how our health freedom movement wants to change the law, I've been able to implement through NHF by getting language over to these legislators. And they're very receptive and interested. So this puts NHF right at the forefront of helping to create change in America, ideally very soon, within the year. That would be great. And the obstacle currently is the political climate in Washington, D.C. That we all know who controls Congress, and these initiatives, these bills, tend to be aligned with freedom and conservatism. And so the change that we are seeking is likely to coincide with a shift in the political sphere. You can almost imagine a sphere or a dome and where it's moving. And whichever way it moves, that's where the protection will be. And so I'm optimistic for a bright future. And you can count on NHF to keep everyone updated on the developments as these bills are introduced and as they make progress through Congress. And Charlie also asked me about the big picture. Where's the change supposed to come from? I think that first and foremost, the vaccine schedule, the CDC vaccine schedule, is the real threat to this country. It is unproven. It is harmful and dangerous. And freedom is a excellent rallying point for individuals, that we want the freedom to choose. But before we even get to freedom, really there's this scientific point, which is that these vaccines are harmful and they are destroying this country. And so I'm very encouraged to hear that members of Congress are willing to look at that and willing to consider the health of the unvaccinated, the health of people who are completely unvaccinated. They are the control group. They are the requirement for us to even do science in the first place. And so that inescapable logic that we need a control group is resonating with members of Congress. And I'm so pleased that NHF can take the lead in carrying the torch for the fully unvaccinated as the control group, because good science is going to make for good law. And we are right there at the forefront.
Excuse me. Thanks, Ray. Let me emphasize the significance of what we call the NICE bill, the National Informed Consent Exemption Act, for which our website, the nhf.com/campaigns, has a sample letter you can send right now asking your representative to support the Gohmert NICE bill. And it is significant because it takes this huge skepticism of the COVID vaccine onto all vaccines, which is doable because now, this Tuesday, right, Greg, the FDA is probably going to approve extension of these still emergency-only vaccines to kids as young as 5 years old. And thank you for bringing up that graph. Everyone look at that graph. That is what is selling our bill with Congress. They're realizing that with the kids under threat of the COVID shots, what about the 72 doses of the other dozen shots they have to get before high school? And what is it doing? These graphs don't lie. It is stark. This is the real epidemic. And that's the language we use to open their minds. They're already skeptical about this COVID hysteria, but there is an epidemic. It's called chronic disease.
That's exactly right. This COVID, in a sense, is an opportunity because it has opened the minds of Congress to look at something that they have chosen not to look at in decades. And our children are suffering big time. More than half of all children are suffering a chronic illness of some sort, something that makes life really hard. That term chronic illness doesn't do justice to what I'm trying to say. Life is hard when you have a chronic illness. When you have diabetes, if you're a child and you have diabetes, you know how hard that is? It changes everything about what it means to be human, to be alive. Cancer, neurodevelopmental disorders. If your brain is not working properly, that is so serious. And for the first time, COVID is opening the minds of Congress to consider vaccination and to consider how vaccination is destroying this country and also other countries. And so it's time to reverse the trajectory. The chronic illness rate in the past has doubled about every 12 years. I mean, you get to a point where it can't double anymore. You're above 50%. And so this issue is such a bellwether for how to protect children. And so I'm pleased that we have the science now to back up these initiatives.
And in our call yesterday with a particular office trying to help the soldiers, Greg, remember he said especially the special operation soldiers are declining the experiment, and they're the top of the human chain there, mind, body, and soul. And then we conversed that the survey showed that the biggest cohort declining participation are PhDs, as well as a whole bunch of nurses risking their livelihoods, losing their jobs, and to avoid this experiment. And we have one of them. Alex, is Jennifer Bridges on the line, and can she unmute herself?
Yes, she is. And I even have on standby a little bit of her speech from the Texas House of Representatives press conference. So welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Great to be here again.
Good.
Jennifer, great to have you again. How is it out there? The nurses, we hear about the closing of hospital wards, emergency rooms, baby wards, maternity wards, nurses desperate to find humane hospitals to work at. And of course, there's the whistleblowing going on about what's really going on in the hospitals. What is your latest on that?
Well, there's a huge amount of whistleblowing going on right now, and it's great because so many more people are standing up and refusing to take this shot all across the country. So I'm talking to a lot of them in different states, but there's tremendous numbers. And a lot of the nurses are verifying that are still in the hospitals, the same things we're hearing, that many units are shut down, that they're not even using their full capacity. So it's making it look like COVID is overrunning their system when really they have full units and huge areas that aren't even being utilized because they have more of a nursing shortage right now than almost anything. So there's so much of a nursing shortage going on, and now they're firing hundreds to thousands of nurses in like every single state, every entity. And then I don't know if you've heard this, but their solution to this is to bring in agency and travel nurses from anywhere in the country, from other countries as well, to fill the spots. But some of these agencies don't even require the vaccination. And I have the documented proof because some of these nurses have seeked me out to share with me all this. So they're literally busting in agency nurses, paying them double to triple the price of what we normally make. And a lot of them aren't even vaccinated to fill our spots of the ones getting fired. And they're also busting in FEMA nurses. And as of right now, FEMA nurses don't have to be vaccinated. Like I've talked to several FEMA nurses, and they're talking about requiring it, and they're kind of getting there, but they're not there yet. So they're busing even around where I live, even here in Texas, the FEMA nurses are getting bussed in like crazy to fill a bunch of shortage spots, and they don't even have the shot. It's literally the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen when it comes to that. And they're also very, very much saying that this whole, it's all about the unvaccinated is such a lie, because the vaccinated patients are filling up the rooms just as much. They're still on ventilators. They're still dying. We know it's not preventing anything. I mean, the whole situation just, I'm hoping one day I'm going to wake up from this bad dream, because it makes absolutely no sense.
Well, I think the American press is. I have an echo, Alex. Are there some unmuted people that we want to mute? If everyone can unmute, if everyone can mute themselves and they're not speaking, that will help Zooms in general. Thank you. I think, Jennifer, there's progress. While we all know from Israel and the UK that most of the COVID hospitalized were vaccinated, and we had certain counties in America report that over the last couple of months, they've, the CDC has manipulated data to bend over backwards to avoid that same dynamic here, but they can't anymore. And so now you see press saying it's okay for COVID vaccinated to die in the hospital. There's an article I saw today. They're trying to rationalize it now, so they're not even fighting it. So thank you for that, Jennifer. How can folks get in touch with you and help you go what's next for you, Jennifer?
Well, we've been very busy lately. Oh, am I muted? No. Okay. We've been very busy lately. Alex was talking about 2 weeks ago, me and 2 other women helped organize a big press conference at our Capitol. So we were really fortunate. We had about 8 Texas House representatives and a couple senators show up to speak. And we were really pushing hard to stop these mandates and put pressure on our governor. That's our website he's showing right now. That's our website that we created to help inform people and share. Okay. Oh, yep. Here's our press conference video. So we had a lot of people join us. It was a lot of hard work putting it together, but the whole thing was about all these bills that we could get passed right now to stop these mandates in Texas. We put a lot of pressure on Governor Abbott. Congressman Louis Gohmert, too, was going to fly in for it and be a part of it, but he couldn't make it. So he sent me a statement that I read. So it went very, very well. And then we did that. And then within the next couple of days, a huge part of Governor Abbott's Republican Party also sent him a letter stating that he needed to stop the mandates. And then I'm pretty sure you heard what happened at Southwest Airlines. The very following weekend after that, they all basically called in sick, and it made them cancel like over 1,500 flights. So all this happening back to back put so much pressure on him. I don't know if you've heard, but our governor actually signed an executive order, which was amazing. This executive order is trying to stop all the mandates. All the exemptions are supposed to pass. Like, it's a great executive order, but our special session just ended on the 19th, and we tried hard. There were a few good bills that could have been passed, but unfortunately nothing passed. So the executive order is still standing in play for now, but we're finding out, so unfortunately, a lot of them will not go against big business. They don't want to go against big business. Some are corrupt, unfortunately. Some areas might be getting a lot of money from these big businesses. So it's very hard to get these bills passed. But we were fortunate to get the executive order, but a lot of the companies aren't honoring the executive order. So they're still requiring these mandates. So the amount of lawsuits that are about to happen here are going to be astronomical. So we're striving forward, doing a lot of speaking events, protests. We've got a concert coming up here in Texas too, November 21st, which is going to be a benefit to our lawsuit. Since we should be heading to the Supreme Court, we're in the appellate court right now. So we're looking, actually, if anyone's interested, for more sponsorships too, to help our concert going. It should be a big event down here in the New Caney area. It's in Montgomery County because it's a little bit more conservative. So that's some of the things we've been doing here lately.
Well, that's fantastic, Jennifer. And if folks could again unmute themselves, I'm not speaking. Alex, is there a minute or so excerpt that we could show, or should we show at the end of the program, or what's your thoughts, Alex?
We've had a few patient people, including NHF President Scott Tips, with their hand raised, so maybe we can address those questions real quick. Scott, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alex, for noticing the raised hand. I appreciate it. At least it has been noticed. First of all, I just wanted to say to Jennifer, you continue to be an inspiration to all of us, Jennifer. Oh, yes, thank you for that. I mean, we even put at least her silhouette on the cover of the magazine. fighting the Goliath that's out there. And you really hit the nail on the head, Jennifer, when you said there's so many of these representatives and senators, state and otherwise, who are beholden to big business, certainly big pharmaceutical companies. I was actually going to ask you, and you kind of already answered it in the time I was waiting to talk, about Governor Abbott's executive order. My understanding was that the order was in effect until the special session could convene and actually pass legislation. Is that the case? And secondarily, has it had an impact on your lawsuit against Houston Baptist Hospital? Has it, or Methodist, sorry. Has it had against Houston Methodist? Sorry, I didn't want to, I grew up a Methodist, so I can't believe, that they would do such a horrible thing as fire competent nurse as you. So I blame it on the Baptists instead. But anyway, did it have any effect on your lawsuit, this executive order?
Well, our lawyer, Jared Woodfill, really thinks it's going to have a good impact on our lawsuit, but he even sent a letter over to Methodist and their lawyers pretty much stating that he would that they should consider reinstating all of us due to this executive order. But last I've heard, we have not heard a response back yet from them, but they are very arrogant and very much stuck in their ways. So I don't think they're going to look at reinstating any of us, but we'll see. You never know.
Yeah. I'm sorry, have they obviously know what's going on with the FEMA nurses, as you described, the unvaccinated ones. So I'm sorry, please continue, because I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's the part I always try to emphasize to people, is even any logical thing that we know, everybody's just ignoring and discrediting. So it's so disheartening. But basically, a lot of your smaller businesses and that are backing off now because of the executive order. Some of the bigger ones have, but people have forwarded me emails from the CEOs at several of these hospitals now, and they're still requiring the mandate. They're stating that they've even stated they're very disappointed with the governor's executive order. But yes, these emails are stating that they're disappointed with the order and that they're still going to continue on with the mandates to help protect everybody. And, the typical BS that they try to say about it. But that's going to create, and I talked to my lawyer about that, and it's just going to create so many more lawsuits since they're going to be going against this executive order. Yeah. And then some of the people at the Capitol, we're going to work on ways that, everybody who's denying this executive order, you can reach out to the Attorney General, you can file complaints. And if you've got, 30, 40,000 people doing this, they're going to have to look into it and start doing something to these companies that are just disregarding this executive order. But
that's a great idea. Great idea. The other thing I was wondering, if I can ask you real quickly, is if you have a list of the, shall we say, recalcitrant legislators in the Texas legislature, whom we could put pressure on, district by district across the state to get them to sign on to the executive order or whatever the bill is that would pass, that would help us. That would be great. And we could help marshal some forces there to do that. And in conjunction with other organizations, probably we could have a big impact.
That would be great. We almost had a bill. We had a bill during special session and it just ended, unfortunately, but it passed the Senate committee. But then when it went to get the votes, this blew our mind, but literally 5 different Republican senators were the ones that stopped it because they refused to go against big business. So you can only speculate, different reasons why, but unfortunately our special session is over and there's no word yet of a 4th one coming into play to pass any more bills. There's been talk that it might happen, but if we don't get another special session, they won't be able to even, try to pass any more bills. But the executive order does still stay in place. From what they
I
were
thought
telling
so.
me, yes, which is great because the executive order, if you look it up, it's actually perfect. If we could get a bill passed of the same nature, it would be amazing. But that'll stay in place as long as, Governor Abbott doesn't take it down or do something, or another bill passes. And then his reelection is next year. So those are the only things that can stop it, basically.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if we could just get the names of those 5 Republican senators, there may be a way to put some pressure on them. So I would really love to have their names. And,
Okay, I'll get it for you.
if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank
I know
you.
there are other people waiting.
Alex, do you want to take some more raised hands or move on?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have 4 raised hands here, so I'm not
Go ahead.
sure if we can go through it. But Doris, you're next, and then there's George, Jay, and Mary Jo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here, I'll bring myself on. Okay. Hi. I appreciate everything you guys do at National Health Federation. It's incredible. I'm so pleased with all the research and trying to expose the harms of vaccines and especially the RFR and all the things you do. I'm afraid that a lot of people are not aware that there is a grant that was put through back in March, and it's called the American Rescue Plan Act. And that from Biden, and that money is being filtered through the ESSER grant, which stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And this third round of funding, the ESSER in combination with the ARP Act, is pretty much making schools beholden to following CDC guidelines. I put the link in the chat, and under the fact sheet on page 5, it literally describes the fact that specifically authorities and LEA, which is local educational agency, to use ARP ESSER funds to develop strategies and implement public health protocols, including to the greatest extent practicable, policies in line with guidance from the CDC for the reopening and operation of school facilities to effectively maintain the health and safety of students, educators, and other staff. And there's so much, yes. And if you scroll down, there's a fact sheet. All the states are listed, and the states that are dissenting from this. It's on page 5, what I just read, under the uses and the funds and the reservations. This is very different than the other ESSER funds. This third one is specifically there to follow the CDC guidelines. And even this is from the U.S. Department of Education's website, and it even lists, on that first page, letters to the states that are dissenting and not properly masking students, like Arizona, Florida, Iowa, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. And so because of this funding to the public schools for them to follow CDC guidelines, I'm very concerned about this push for children ages 5 to 11 to receive the jab. Because as you and I and the rest of us all know, the CDC is a business and is pretty much a captured agency when they're getting funding from the liability-free injection creators and others. So I'm just wondering, I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, the funding and how it's very specific. There is also something that I think all parents, especially if their children are in public schools, should be aware of. This memo was given back in April. And so like Virginia alone has, they have divvied up the money to all the different counties. And this isn't chump change. This is billions of dollars. And on top of that, not to overwhelm everybody, but there is one more thing. So when I followed down the rabbit hole of researching into this ARP, American Rescue Plan, and the ESSER grants, in the Federal Registrar, there is also links to Ed COVID-19 handbooks that were created by Miguel Cardona, the Secretary of U.S. Department of Education. And the handbooks are frightening. The handbooks, are listing kind of what's happening now within schools, and that children who are not jabbed have to quarantine, while those who have taken the jab don't have to quarantine, all this medical segregation that's occurring. And so, this is I know this is specific throughout the United States of America, and I know this is a National Health Federation call, but my concern is that this bill, this funding is what they are using to mask our children, and their plan is to vaccinate the children. That's very clear. So how do we stop this from occurring, and how do we raise awareness with the legislators that this money has been given to, follow CDC guidelines to the greatest extent practicable, when we know they're going to be meeting at the FDA. And then if the CDC pushes it through, these schools they're being funded to follow these guidelines. So I'm happy to talk, more about this later offline, but I wanted to make this group aware. And I've been reaching out to various people trying to get the word out.
Well, thanks, Doris. Definitely it's federal, because it's federal education funding, incentivizing the actions by the states and the schools, and of course there's state exemptions that we have to preserve, and we have to push this national exemption. And definitely let's have you and Jenny get together offline how we think NHF can help down the road.
That'd be great. Thanks, Charles. I appreciate you guys.
Okay, thanks. Alex, anyone else with a hand raised?
Yeah, we have George, Jay, and Mary Jo.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
George Mears. As Charles knows, my first career was a naval aviator, 23 years, 5,600 hours, carrier pilot, that sort of thing. But I've kept track with it, with a lot of the services, what's going on, and the military leadership is just completely void. I've got a nephew. He's an enlisted in the Coast Guard out at West Bend, Oregon. He put in for an exemption. He doesn't want to get the jab. He's scared. He's young. He just got married. He wants to have children, and his wife has lost her job. They've told him they're talking about a bad conduct discharge. If anyone has got any experience in the military, a bad conduct discharge is a serious criminal, drugs, murder, rapes, that sort of thing. And they're talking about abusing the red flag laws when they kick him out to make sure he can never own a gun. I mean, they're going full bore. The chaplains are AWOL. The military leadership is non-existent. The chaplains are being told to trick them into saying anything political when they're counseling them, so they can reject their religious exemption requests. They've got 26. Last time I talked to them, there's 26 rescue swimmers in his squadron that also refused to get the jab. The people at the highest risk, obviously, are the young, healthy athletes, and they've already got really high immune systems anyway. That kicks them into overdrive. That starts all the heart problems. And I mean, I sent Charles a link just before this started. It's a Dr. John Campbell out of England who's talking to this kid who got the jabs. He was a bicyclist. He's almost a year ago, hasn't been right since. And what he's gone through is just abusive. So if you want to share it with the group, that's Charles's call. But there's no leadership in the military now. All the warriors have been sucked out, purged, and they're just nothing but sycophants. And it's really sickening. I mean, they've got over 675 SEALs that are saying absolutely not. And they're talking, the BCD, the red flag laws, and they're talking about charging them for, their hundreds of thousands of dollars for the training that they received. So I'm just passing that on. It's pretty pathetic, and it's very abusive.
Greg, you may want to unmute yourself for my response. So we just discussed this yesterday with a congressman who authored a letter signed by a lot of other members of Congress, condemning the mandates for our soldiers. And as I mentioned earlier, it was the more elite soldiers, especially, who are refusing to participate in this experiment. And Greg, are you still there?
And it makes me think, how many of our giant institutions were ever really sustainable? Does it surprise us that they're not able to sustain themselves now? We might be witnessing an overhaul of institutions. And, how can I say this best? COVID-19 vaccination is kind of like a real world IQ test. People just need to see the pattern of previous vaccine injuries. They need to see the pattern of the FDA being a bought institution. And then once they recognize that pattern, they know how to take the test. They know how to pass the test. And sometimes tests are hard. And nobody knows that better than our great US military and how hard they train and work. And some of their tests involve incredibly rigorous, field work. And so it might be that things get a little bit harder before they get better. It might be that, the injuries increase before they get better. It's absolutely tragic. But on some level, it's not really that surprising with unsustainable institutions doing unsustainable things.
But Greg, we're also working with that member of Congress on a bill to put liability on these institutions who commit these crimes against workers.
We're trying to reverse it instantly. It's just that how can we achieve these? How can we protect the military with a Democratic Congress that's not willing to allow us to introduce these, that's not willing to pass these bills? It seems that all that Congress wants to do at this time is pass bills giving tons of money to those who follow the CDC and FDA guidance, which is exactly what was highlighted by Doris May. So there needs to be a shift of thinking before the implementation of these bills. I think that's what I'm observing.
And to that extent, Alex, unless we have someone else with their hands raised, we have our project started.
We have 3 people with their hands raised.
Okay, go ahead,
They've been
Alex.
waiting patiently.
Yeah. All right, Jay.
Well, I've just got some random notes here that I'm just going to throw it all out there. See if anybody wants to pick up on any of this or not, just ideas. I really like to try and get at the substance of the beast, try and just disintegrate cell by cell rather than the whole thing. How we do this, I don't know, but these are my notes. Number one, I have an associate on my nonprofit's board of advisors who's been running a nonprofit for years, very successfully, a lot of humanitarian work in Africa. And she said a project she took on was to find a volunteer at a university, a student, to research what kind of websites and fundraising efforts are working for other nonprofits. And I wonder if it wouldn't be worthy of trying to get research conducted to see what's been changing minds, both public minds and legislator and judges' minds. Might be worthwhile. Number two, we're talking about big business being so challenging, and I'm just wondering why they would be, because they don't have a vested interest. It's the pharma vax world that has the vested interest. So again, they're influencing that business. And it might be worthy looking into how to try to get to that and change minds along those lines. What could be done to appeal directly, a project, a campaign, the public, and getting engaged on it, reaching to news anchors, reaching out to news administrators, to employers about the conflict of interest that they're being duped by and complicit with for the rich. And it always still comes down to how the wealthy are the ones making a fortune, and how much they want to maybe rethink that they're buying into something that's making people rich. Maybe they're being influenced and misled, open their minds. This way, rather than just like, oh, here's a few people who got injured, which people write off as, well, the FDA says it's safe and effective. That's the exception. Got to call you back. I'm on a national call. an enlightenment project. I keep thinking about story upon story to be spread and just give to these people saying, if you were super rich and you wanted to get super richer and richer, you would probably research industries and determine the vaccine industry was the most lucrative. And then you would determine if we could get a pandemic opportunity for vaccination of the world. And then if we could influence legislators and control the news media and control social media, wake people up this way. I'm also wondering, where's the forum for scientists screaming about the psychological harm to 6-year-old children wearing masks all day? I mean, when this all started, you'd see some of these scientists talking about the psychological impact, to everybody not working and so forth, and it being much worse for health than any pandemic could be. That stuff's almost disappeared now. But what could be more visceral than how are children going to learn to speak when they can't be watching people's mouth moves, let alone the need to smile and communicate and so forth? I'm wondering about a forum on the NHF site for these things to be discussed and reported in order to draw people in to donate. And my last thought is Children's Health Defense seems to be pursuing really serious, aggressive legal action to get at the heart of this. And I don't know if there's a way to collaborate. That's all my thoughts. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Jay, thank you. And that segues after our hand raised questions are finished to Dr. Ben's project, which will explore these bigger questions, and we hope you will stay around and participate in that. Alex is next.
Mary Jo, then Pesca, then Jennifer Bridges. Are you there, Mary? All right, we can come back to her later. Pesca?
Hi, thanks for including me in this. My question is, what I'm seeing is not just the bills or the quality of bills or legislators wanting to move forward. There's a contract, and we have to be aware of what is in the content of that contract that the states or the federal has signed with these pharmaceutical companies. Now, something came out, a few months ago about the Brazil contract that had not been highly secured on their site. So we got to see the language in the Brazil as well as the Albanian. And I haven't followed through again, but this is contract law we're dealing with. And so I think, I don't know, you're smart here. We've got good lawyers here. We need to attack this at a contract level. We are all parties to that contract based on what I read in the Brazil contract. But we didn't sign up for that. So there was a presumption made about our agreement with that contract. So that's all I wanted to say. Someone needs to look at it. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but that's all I keep thinking about. I could scream to my legislators. I could scream to my governors. They're not listening because they have signed something behind our backs. And what we also know is big corporations have been silently, quietly funded. An email came out from Southwest. One of their employees disclosed that somewhere like $25 billion cash was given to the Southwest with no strings attached. Well, we know that there's strings attached to go along, to get along, right? As well as another $25 billion in loans. We don't know the terms of those loans. So I think there's been some financial incentives to the big corporations to get along with the agenda. So I just wanted to share that and put it on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Pesca. Jennifer?
Sorry, really quick, just two things I wanted to add. Definitely the military, what they're going through, but I don't know if y'all are aware of the FBI and the CIA in them as well. I just wanted to make sure y'all knew. Some people from the FBI contacted me, and they've mandated it across all those different federal entities by November 9th. And there's literally 40 to 50% of the FBI, CIA, all those other organizations that will not take the shot. So they're actually looking at terminating that many of them by November 9th as their deadline, but no one's talking about it publicly. So most people aren't aware it's even going on at that level, but they've reached me directly. So I can get you in contact with them if you need to talk to any of them, but that is huge. And I also want to let you know one more thing. There's Dr. Lindsay. She's on the chat right now. I invited her. She's a toxicologist here in Texas, and she has been great fighting against everything and as witnesses on different lawsuits. And I wanted to make sure y'all connected with her because she would be a great source of information and a great ally too with everything going on. But thank you.
Wow, thank you for that. I hadn't heard of that. Had you, Charlie, anybody else about the CIA, FBI? Around half are not interested in the risk.
Well, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, it
My
doesn't
husband's
surprise
at the
me,
federal-
but you say it like it's a bad thing. I don't know. I don't know any FBI or CIA that's on our side. Maybe they're a handful in the closet or something, but they're actually the enemy right now. So, but anyway, it is a big thing. I wasn't aware of that.
I would say that I can also appreciate that. I would say that among the rank and file, there are a lot of patriots, a lot of people who really love the country. And
you hear that, but I've also seen people discredit that notion as well. They say they've dug deep and all these people are obeying the dictates from above. They may or may not like it. We may never know, but they're doing the dirty deed anyway. They're like the camp guards at Auschwitz, just taking my orders and all of that. I would think that the real patriots would be resisting, would be feeding us information, would be doing anything they could to bring that system down. And it does. I mean, the FBI needs to be abolished. The CIA is long overdue to be abolished. And they're just, at this stage, criminal organizations. And anyone who participates in them are criminals. I mean, they've gone to the deep side. They're going out and they're taking people, they're harassing people, parents who are just trying to talk to school boards and protect their children and have the most innocent of motives, the best of motives from their kids, and certainly the most innocent from a criminal law standpoint, yet these people are being harassed. So, frankly, I long ago had the philosophy that there were some good people there, but I haven't seen any in a very long time.
I think you're right that the organizations need an absolute overhaul. I'm reminded of farming. A good farmer can transplant anything. Now, I think there's so many good eggs in these agencies, and they just need to be put in the right place where they can thrive and do good and do justice. I mean, people who have devoted their careers to things like stopping human trafficking, who are right on the front lines of that. And so I think there's room. I think, a farmer can look at any failing farm and say, you know what, this can be transformed. This can be changed. I can take these and I can transplant them here. And I think that that's the calling of our generation. Just like a great doctor. A doctor can take a failing body and say, you know what, I know how to nurture this back to health. Farmer, I know how to nurture this farm back to health. And a lawyer, I know how to take this organization and bring it back.
And at the end of the day, we don't want to speculate.
You're very convincing, Greg. Oh, sorry, Alex.
I just want to say, because at the end of the day, all what really matters is, as individuals, how many FBI agents have we interacted with? I mean, we have to have our...
Not many.
No, but at the end of the day, that's all we're just speculating unless we have...
Alex, that's an excellent question. How many have we interacted with that we know about? I mean,
could I interject?
Yeah.
So my husband works for a federal agency, and so he knows a lot of federal people. Like, he trained down in FLETC, which is down in Georgia, and he knows a lot of people in all the different agencies. And so there are a lot of them that are not getting it or don't want to get it, but they're not saying anything out loud. And he actually has gotten a group together within his own agency. His group is he's a park police officer, and they're under the DOI, the Department of Interior. He's gotten a group together of about 30 of them, which is a lot because they're already understaffed at Park Police. It's one of the oldest agencies in the nation. But the DOI just recently sent out a questionnaire to everybody under the Department of Interior, asking about their religious beliefs, and it was a optional questionnaire. But the problem is, it's like a game of chicken. people don't know when to blink or what is like when to answer the question or not answer the question. So a lot of them are just holding out and seeing who's going to blink first, because the DOI is also having a town hall right before that cutoff date to try to get one last push for everyone to get vaccinated. So there's a lot going on that's under the waters, I think, that people aren't seeing or hearing about because it's interagency and you don't know where the line is to speak out.
Mhm. Very true. Very true. Well, I'm just always mindful of what Mencken said, you know, the American philosopher from the early 20th century, mid 20th century. He said, to say that the cure for bad government is send more good men into it is like saying that the cure for prostitution is to send more virgins into brothels. And when you have institutions, he said that very tongue in cheek, of course, but when you have institutions like this that have become so incredibly corrupt, it's very tough for individuals who are well-meaning to change their direction. It's sort of like, well, there were some good people in the Gestapo, and you know, but they couldn't affect it, obviously. I mean, you had, what was it, Schindler's List. So here's a guy who's trying to do a little good. He wasn't in the Gestapo, but just the German army. But really, they're sadly few and far between, and they aren't speaking. Maybe they are speaking up internally. Maybe there's an interior resistance movement, like you were saying, Jenny, that we don't even know about or can't even conceive of. And I hope to God that is the case. And I actually hope that Greg is correct. I'm banking that he's correct on this, and there's some really good people in there. But really, I haven't seen any sign of them. And maybe they'll come out. But I have heard that between now, October 20th with the full moon, and March 3rd, there should be some significant changes that we will live to see, hopefully live to see, in the United States, including maybe some major changes in the government and the like in our favor, hopefully. But we'll see.
Charlie, I only have 5 or 10 more minutes.
Okay, sorry.
Charlie, would you like to introduce Dr. Benz?
Sure. So our final speaker is, let me get this plugged in here, is Dr. Benz, who's going to continue with his project to reform the health system. And we have a new form where folks can list their 3 biggest problems with healthcare and help us upgrade the healthcare system. So Dr. Benz, take it away.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm going to share the screen here. I think that, excuse me, the comments by Pesca and Jay Newman were really excellent because they pointed to some specific problems that need to be addressed. And so in this process, you'll see that we're on step 3. We've already done step 1, which is name the problem, and step 2, which is name the goal. Now we're on to step 3, which is what is the root cause of this problem. So, excuse me. So for people who weren't involved before, the problem generally is that a majority of healthcare industry is focused on treating sick people for profit with mostly scientifically weak strategies. This system is unsustainable and will soon lead to less healthy population, which will then bankrupt individuals, organizations, and eventually the entire country. And the goal is to accelerate the movement towards the use of an evidence-based medicine, which we're going to call integrative medicine, to provide safer, more effective, and less costly healthcare. Additionally, individuals, organizations need to take more responsibility for efforts to prevent and reverse chronic illness with proven tools and strategies supported by informed and motivated government and healthcare decision makers. So the third step is to get to the root cause of this. And I said, Pesca and Jay did a great job in pointing out some of the specific things that could be done. In this case, what we want you to try to do is find out what the real root cause is. And so if you look at, say, the example of cost, existing healthcare system costs too much. Well, then you have to ask why. Well, because people don't, in this case, I'm going to add another element, which is they don't eat well enough. So vaccinations were one, toxins are another, radiation is another. But a lot of the problem comes from the fact that people don't really eat as well as they should. So why is that? You have to ask another question. Well, because the food companies make sure that they put ads out there for food that has a lot of fat in it, a lot of salt, and a lot of sugar, and these are addictive. And so people go, yum, yum, I'm going to go and get those foods. But well, why is that? Well, because those food companies make a lot of money. And why do they get away with this? Because they can do these ads on TV. There's no qualifications of them like there should be in terms of their health and safety. But that's, again, one of those things that I think Scott was pointing out. It's about greed and about more or less corruption. And so you have to dig to the root cause of these problems. And so I think that when you get to the bottom line, it's going to be some kind of greed, some kind of corruption, some kind of not really caring for what's going on, because obviously children are going to get hurt by the program that goes forward. So we're asking everybody to, in the form that Charlie just mentioned, to list what 3 of the root causes are that you think should be addressed. And I think Jay more or less said, what if we had some money? Would we be able to do some of these things and get to the root cause of some of these problems? So there's no limit on how many we're going to consider. It's just that we try to get everybody to at least give us 3 of their best root causes. And then we're going to tabulate those, put them on a list. And then we're going to go back to this process, and we're going to actually then do brainstorming. So here we're going to try to figure out what are the specific ideas that we're going to use to address these problems. And then the 5th one will be, we're going to go and everybody's going to get a chance to look at this, what I call an effort and impact grid. So we're going to look at every solution and we're going to see how much effort is involved and how much impact will that have on dealing with this problem. If we can do that, then we're going to create a general plan, which will probably fall into 4 or 5 or 6 different categories. And this is where the real work begins. But we have to have a template. We have to have an overall strategy. And this is where it's going to come from, because at the end of this, we're going to have a consensus. Because everybody will have participated, everybody will have had an idea to put their idea in, and then we'll find out which ones come to the top of the list. And so this is the process, and this is what we're hoping you'll all participate in. And I'm hoping that we'll get a big involvement from everybody that's been involved in this call, and a lot of other people that will join us along this journey.
So in the chat, folks, click that link, list your opinion on what healthcare's 3 biggest problems are, root cause, please. And by doing so, you'll sign up to join our effort and join our next step of this process next month, probably sometime. You'll see the specifics in an alert where we'll discuss your problems that you list and we'll prioritize them just as Dr. Benz described. And why, Dr. Benz, is this process that we began, I think in August or September, so important?
Well, it's important because you can hear all the wonderful ideas that people have and all the places that this is reaching. And you can hear all the resentment and disappointment from the system. It's obviously a broken healthcare system. And if we don't sort of do this job and do it well, we're going to end up with somebody forcing us to do a single payer system. And it's not going to address all the things that we've been trying to address. We've probably got 2 to 3 years to try to turn the corner here. And so we have to get some consensus. We have to then engage a lot of people who have influence and have money to try to get this to be reversed, because the ideas are there. There was proof of that today from everybody that gave testimony and gave information. It's just that information is not being disseminated to all the people that it needs to be disseminated to. And so we need the influencers and the fundraisers to come forward after the general strategy is seen and say, look, you're on the right path. We know the system is broken. We have to fix it, because the solution they're going to come up with later is not going to be the one we all want.
And for those who have not been on previous Zooms with you, Dr. Benz, describe how fun and awesome it will be for them to join this process in terms of your past facilitation events with governments and institutions ironing out their internal differences as a facilitator?
Well, the nice thing about this process is that when you get a lot of people involved in it, and I can tell you one of the ones that we did was the red tide problem in Florida. And a number of communities tried to pass a red tide bylaw, and they couldn't get it passed because there was too much consensus. Everybody was disagreeing with everybody else. The environments couldn't talk to the lawn care people because they always would end up fighting each other. And so we used this process. We got these people into 4 different groups. We had them follow this process where they all agreed on what the facts were. They all agreed what some of the solutions were. They all agreed what the priority solutions were. By the time we were done in the 4 separate groups, we brought them together. They agreed on 90% of what was going to be done without one argument happening because we didn't allow them to talk to one another. And so this was one of those things where you use a combination of tools to get people to have a discussion without getting the argument, without getting the emotions involved. And that's where you can reach some consensus. And then finally, we passed in Sarasota the first red tide bylaw in the state. And it actually won an award from the state government for excellence in innovation and creativity. We've done this maybe 30 or 40 times around the world with different problems, from cleaning up the Danube River to solving a lot of environmental problems in Canada. Even with the National Geological Survey, where they had 10 years that they tried to find out what the solutions were to the problems of predicting earthquakes and getting them to be resolved adequately through local planning and zoning bylaws. In 10 years, all those scientists disagreed with one another. But by the end of this process, 80 of these scientists came together in 2 days. They agreed with everything that we had proposed because we walked them through this process one step at a time and got agreement with everything at every step of the way. So this process works. I don't care what it is. It can be communist countries. It can be anywhere in the world where this stuff can be done. I've done it in big companies. This process works if we just give it a chance and everybody participates honestly and openly.
And if they do list their 3 problems in that link in chat, Dr. Benz, what kind of time and effort commitments will they be signing up for, and what will be the reward after it's all through?
Well, you know, I think we're looking at an hour total because they already know what some of the root causes are. You heard some of the people give it today. And so if they use the root cause analysis and get down to what the problem is, they're going to spend 5 minutes doing that. Then they're going to spend another 5 minutes doing the brainstorming session because people have brilliant ideas. I think that whole thing about getting all the science together, that's a brilliant idea. That's called best practice research. So Jay hit one right on the head right there. So I think there's going to be a lot of brilliant ideas. And then when we do the effort and impact grid, that's going to take the time. That's going to be 40 to 45 minutes, putting things in a priority basis. Other than that, I don't think a lot of this requires a lot of people's time. And they've already thought so much about this. I don't think they're going to have to think about it a lot more, except for that one meeting. Once we get the plan in place, we're going to run it past everybody, see if anybody has any major concerns or exceptions to it. If they do, we'll note them and try to make accommodations for them. I think after an hour of their involvement over the next month or 2, they're going to be really pleased with what we've created.
That sounds fantastic, Dr. Benz. Alex, any hands up or any questions in chat?
No hands up right now. I was just thinking about next month's Zoom, and if we're going to continue the tradition of third Friday. I know today was the 4th Friday in October, but November 19th.
I think with November 19th, before the Thanksgiving week, that makes sense to keep it at the 3rd Friday, probably.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So
And
any
Go
other
ahead.
questions, anybody? We've been trying to keep this under, 90 minutes. So
I just want to throw out a quick comment. Dr. Benz mentioned about we need the money. Listen, guys, the problem is the money, the money, the money. With all our ideas and all our incredible hearts and coordination, our solution requires the money, the money, the money. So for us to find creative ways to get some very wealthy people to open their bank accounts to us is probably a really key part of getting our work done.
Jay, that's a great idea. And today I got an email from a Vistage chair. I don't know whether you guys know Vistage, but they're the largest CEO network in the world. and he has some angel investors interested in healthcare. And I have 3 projects that I'm going to consider, and we're going to call on Monday, and we're going to talk about it. I think that some of those angel investors might be interested in what we're going to be talking about. So, I've got a cancer hospital that I want to fund and a few other things, but if there's money there and they hear about this and they're interested, we're going to share that money with the group and get some of these things done.
Well, I wish you good luck with that. I have, over the years, gotten to where I used to call myself an entrepreneur. Wow, risk it all to have it all. Just hang in there no matter what. I've evolved to where I no longer consider that such a cool word in today's world. I don't know what the right, identity should be, but investors no longer is such a cool word to me either. Philanthropists matters to me. And I have strategy that I'm working on. I even messaged you to please call me after. I've got some things in the works that if they pan out, which they almost inevitably will, as long as they don't stop me first, to start to really open those floodgates. So I think creatively it can be done. I think it's
we have a new insurance company that's being launched, and guess what? It's going to focus on health and wellness and being motivated and incentivized. And so we're looking for this company to actually compete directly with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And there's some other things that we're doing that I think are going to start to turn the corner. But we need to get all these ideas and farm as many as we can to get the best ideas, because if we don't get the best ideas, then we're not going to get the best results.
Well, if anybody can bring in the money, it's you, and however you're doing it, I'm sure everything you're doing is helping mankind anyway. So I wish you the best of success. We should coordinate, communicate, and I think bringing those two sides together, pursuing the funding and putting together the classic thing that brings in the funding, which is a concise game plan of what will be done with the funding, is an important thing to consolidate the ideas to, a clear presentation and say, hey guys, you got the money. This is the problem. The problem, and this is our steps. You know that, of course. Know that.
Jay, just think about all the supplement companies that all sell their products. What if they all were joined, like you had mentioned, all into an educational collaborative, so that all that great knowledge that they're sharing on their individual webinars and podcasts was all in one site where people could go and learn everything about how to be healthier. We're now doing it all independently, and there's no need to do that.
Okay, now I have another side to that I'm looking at. What if, guys, think about this. 18 months ago, I was talking to a friend, a customer, whatever, who said, oh, it was just starting. And I intuited it. I said, you know where this is going? The vaccine industry is going to so take over things that they're going to ostracize everybody who doesn't want to get vaccinated till we're going to be moved out of society to concentration camps or something. And he said, good, that's where they belong if they're a danger and they're too stupid. The fact that all these people that are refusing to get vaccinated are losing their jobs is part of that process. It's really scary. But what if we put together the kind of presentations that persuade people, like, what if you were super rich? Think about what's going on here from the mentality point of view, the storytelling point of view, not just here's data about how percentage of, of injuries, but think about how much you're being duped, or potentially, if you were rich from the other side, you'd be pulling all these strings. You know what a picture of Bill Gates's house looks like? It's a small city. It's a command center compound. Well, what if we put these stories together to persuade the news anchors, the politicians, the judges, the people running big businesses, and we equip these countless hundreds of thousands of people that are being ostracized and alienated and losing their jobs to do their social media campaigns to get that out to all these people.
Yes, that's exactly what has to happen. And so if we do this the way you're talking about it, then we're going to have the ammunition and we're going to have the vehicles to deliver the ammunition. And so that's what it amounts to. We have the answers. The answers have been there for the last 10 years. but we haven't done anything with them. We haven't moved the needle more than an inch in the last 10 years because the system is just too calcitrant. It's too locked in to the existing processes that they have. We have to break them down, and I think that's what we're going to do. But you don't do it with a frontal attack. You don't do it by punching them in the nose. You have to sneak around, and it's a battle of 1,000 cuts. And we have to do that very strategically. So this is strategically trying to disarm, as I think Scott said, the enemy, and try to find a better way to move forward with or without them. Either they can join the fight going forward, or they can fight like hell and go down in flames. And that's okay with me too.
Well, clearly my thought is to find a way to change the public mind more and more and more, and equip those that are on our side to use their contacts or social media to change the minds of those that are, open to being enlightened. I mean, that's how the other side did what they did to get to where they are, is by controlling the public mind.
Right.
And that has to happen in the other direction for anything to take hold.
Absolutely agree with you. I think we're on track to do that.
Just my 2 cents, and I know we're getting to the end now, but I think one of the biggest problems is we need to unify with one description of what natural health and healing is,
Yes, we're going to have a definition, Alex, exactly. If we don't have a good definition of what natural medicine is and what evidence-based medicine is, there is no agreed to definition of what evidence-based medicine is. Right now, according to powers that be, statin drugs, one person lives longer with 150 used statin drug. That's less than 1% efficacy. That's not evidence-based medicine. That has to be replaced with something that really works and gets the outcomes. The Baldrige Award is the award of excellence for healthcare. And they were, a hospital in West Virginia was given that award. I called up the medical director and I said, do you have any outcomes for winning this award? He said, not one. They didn't have one outcome, because I called the Baldrige Award people and I said, where are your outcomes? Oh, so we don't know how to do that. That we only measure the processes to see if they're excellent or not. And I said, well, then you're wasting your time. So I wrote an article on how to put outcomes into the healthcare system. And so it's out there. It's on Total Health Magazine website, and you can go there and look at it. And so I've given them all the ideas they need about how to create outcomes for healthcare. But the biggest award for excellence in healthcare has no outcomes. That's not acceptable.
I hope you're thinking in terms of that process exposing the lack of positive outcomes for big pharma, because what is your thoughts of evidence-based medicine expanding into things like diet, lifestyle, fasting, fresh air, where you don't have products to sell to measure?
It's 90% of it, because if people ate a better diet and tried to control their exposure to radiation and toxins, they'd be 90% there. They'd all be healthier, and none of them would have gotten sick. We now estimate that up to 90% of the people who died of COVID didn't need to die, because they were compromised to the extent where their immune system really didn't function the way that it should. And they took that information and distorted it, and now just said everybody needs this vaccine because that's the answer. The vaccine is not the answer.
Well, that's where more funding and more coordinating so that we can do studies more and reporting on those things, which is more nebulous because there's no product to profit on and focus on. But that's where real health happens, is just with lifestyle. Hopefully we'll evolve to where we can have so much more of that. And, you'll turn on the TV, instead of an ad for a pharmaceutical drug, you'll see reporting on that and support.
Yeah, absolutely. And there shouldn't be ads on TV, by the way. New Zealand and the United States are the only countries in the industrialized world that allow that. And so that should be, and I know here we're slipping into ideas now, but the idea that 98% of doctors don't know anything about nutrition, that's ridiculous too. So that's part of the problem. But we're going to get to all of these. I'm sure, absolutely sure, we're going to get to the root cause of all of these problems, and we're going to address them And eventually we're gonna be able to address the majority of them so that we can start to get a movement in this direction where we do work together.
Well, not to drift, I think the focus of getting large money and showing them this is our specific plan, and to me, combining all these legislative and specific efforts with some way to get social media spreading to wake up people that can be woken up on the other side is a real important thing to focus on.
It won't be easy, but it has to be done.
And it's not always through social media. It can be through text message, through email, so we don't have to deal with fascist book.
Yeah, well, Google's not going to help us, and Amazon's not going to help us. So,
well, we're at that 1:30 mark. I'm wondering, any of our speakers today have any last closing thoughts, or NHF President Scott Tips, any closing thoughts as we move on here? Continue on with our busy lives?
Well, thank you, Alex, for asking. I really don't. I'm just totally impressed with the work that you and Charlie have done here in organizing this event today and bringing together such a remarkably good group of people. And, as always, totally impressed with Greg Glazer, who can outthink any of our opponents out there. So glad he's on our side, not against us. And everyone else. I mean, Dr. Benz, this has been really great, and it will be even more so when we get into more of the meat of the subject. And Jay, you've just been outstanding with some of your suggestions. So that's really it. I've got to, like so many of the other people, I've got to hit the road, but I appreciate the chance to get in a last word here. But good job, Alex. Good job, Charlie. And thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, everybody. And remember, November 19th will be our November monthly Zoom. Have a great rest of your day and weekend, everyone.